Welcome back to part 2 of this interview. As you can see, some people got a little too hot for Blazers, but I like to think I am the hot fire, and so I'm keeping this on. And I know the other one was a little longer than some of the videos, but I feel like as a discussion piece, it kind of should be able to be given that longevity. And yeah, so we're back for part 2 with the Founding Fathers. And there's not really any introduction, so we can kind of jump right into it. I actually have another question for these three gentlemen. As, I was going to say everybody, but for most people, pretty much for a lot of people, you guys are the foremost innovators for this game. You guys make concepts, you break concepts, you take things, new cards, chew them up, spit them out, come out with all sorts of new things. How do you guys look at cards and decide this is good, or this card is trash, or it's just going to go in my collection bin because, yeah, like, just how do you guys decide that?
Alright, so I guess I'm up first again. So I've talked about this, if you guys seen me on any other streams, podcasts, I know I've talked about this with Dusty and other people. When I look through a set, if there is a card that just inherently screams broken, like that, like it's obvious, then obviously I will figure out what's the most efficient way to do it. But if there's a card, so for example, most recently in set 6, it was Chile Leader. It checks a lot of boxes. Like, it's like, I know Cold Bloodlust is a very strong card. It checks the box because she's got Freeze's army. I know that green has several very powerful exclusive cards under, like, you know, Preemptive Strike, and then Son Goku, Hope of Universe 7, she checks that box. So it's like, we just go down and just check all the things that she could use from other sets, or like other cards that I keep in at the back of my head that I consider to be good already. And you know, even if she might not make it there, it's like, I know that if something comes out later on down the line, which has ended up being Oob, this card will be playable at a competitive level. I just keep tabs on specific things. Like, the first one, for example, I ever used was in set 1. Obviously, Dual Attack Goku has far been power creeped at this point, but in set 1, he wasn't competitively viable, but at the time it was. If Goku ever gets a card like Cold Bloodlust, he just jumps to the top. So I just catalog things that I think are very good. Like, Final Showdown Son Goku is a very good card, just not have a shell at the moment. So it's literally, I keep 4, and I just go, when you get a shell, or like a you know, a competitive like archetype that you can slot into, that's when we go on it. And that's kind of how I look at the set. If it doesn't immediately have something, like if I can just generically say like this card is good, or there is potential here, I will literally just file it away in my like little memory bank. And then obviously if it's just a generically like broken card or a generically good card like the Broly's or Gogetas in this set, then like it's just like, okay, just ship it. Just whatever we can do, figure out what's the most effective way we can do it. Play test it. If it works, good.
All right.
I think Pat definitely hit on one of my three core values, and I think that extends to a second one of knowing the card pool. When you understand where every card is, and as well as if this card gets X, Y, and Z support, this card is insane. But you have to be able to look at those cards and say, this is what this needs to be powerful. And a lot of that comes from seeing other decks and from seeing other games and from experience. But I think the most important value is in assuming. The more assumptions you make, the more difficult it is to innovate. When you lack the open-mindedness to challenge status quos and to say, what if we take this idea and play it in a way that's not intended, you miss out on opportunities for innovation. So I think a really good example we saw recently is we tested set 6 up and down, left and right, and all day, and we didn't see Super Shine Round Storm in any capacity. That was all, you know, Danny Wynn and Jordan Beard and
correct.
Danny Hype and those individuals. And honestly, I think the reason why that was a leader that Matt kind of took in his pocket. He had a list that he made very, very early on, and we looked at this list, and he's like, yeah, I think playing it as a hand destruction deck is the best way to play it. And that was based on his experience, and the deck tested well, but kind of the end result we came from that was Super Shenron, taking that extra turn often felt win more compared to Shenron decks, based on the amount of fairness that we're building our Super Shenron decks. And when we made that assumption, I personally closed off the idea of finding ways to separate Super Shenron from Shenron. So that was a a good negative example. I think a good positive example of keeping an open mind is looking at Blue Dende and saying, well, why is Blue Dende do anything better than Super Shenron, or regular Shenron rather, in a Child's Wish deck? And then I realized that by the ability to burst 2, there's plenty of cards in this game, including the Desire that you want to fetch back, that you can get value out of bursting. So when I stopped looking at Dende as just a crappier Shenron and looked at it as a leader that can +3 or +4 on Awakened, it opened up a lot of possibilities. So I think finding ways to put those assumptions to the side and surrounding yourself with people that when they give you feedback, it fosters keeping an open mind and not limiting your train of thoughts and directions to go into.
Yeah. Open mind is definitely a big deal.
Well said.
That was powerful.
That. It was. It resonated with me. Made me feel warm and fuzzy.
I have to throw out part 1 now. Just...
Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Part 1 is
beautiful.
Part 1. This is part 1. What are you talking about? No, just go, Matt. Go.
All right. So I tend to look things at a more granular level when it comes to card evaluation. I know that the explanations you guys gave were like really well thought out and detailed. But this is something that I've had to explain to a lot of people when they're trying to look at and get better at the card evaluation. Is I look at every single individual card that comes out, and I look at how many cards this card is actually worth. And so when I say that, it's like how much value is this card going to give me when this card is played as it stands with the rest of the card pool, both previous as well as within the same set. So if you take something as simple as like look at set 1 and look at how powerful Energy Boosted Majin Buu was, right? So that was a card that was great because it was basically a card and a half worth of value. You played it, it cantripped you a card, and then it was a 5k combo, so that was like the half card part of it, so 1.5 cards. Well, now you take that and you get a card like Burnished Bonds of Gorgos or Godly Obstruction Whis, and now you're getting the same 1.5, but now you're getting a meaningful effect, and like that pays off in a format in which you have knowledge of. So it's like now that card is almost worth 2 cards because of what it presents to you. And so the card like Foreseeing Hit, everyone knows Foreseeing Hit's my card. It's like it's my favorite card because of the value that card generates, right? I'm spending my 4 energy, and with my 4 energy that I'm spending, I look at your entire hand, and I can do a number of things. I can try and kill you. I can count how much combo power you have. I can take your next turn away from you. And so that card is almost like has X value, whereas X is dependent on the state of the game. And so I look at all these cards in those different standpoints and just try and build out the value of each card. And when you start getting to a point where you're looking at cards that are kind of breaking the rules of the game, for instance, where it's giving you too much for free or too much for a little cost, that's how I then start to decide where I want to put my energy and spend my energy. Or if there's something that I can try and do faster than anything else and really push it to the maximum, I'll spend my time really doing that. But all of it starts with figuring out how much a card is worth. And then once I figure out how much a card is truly worth, that's how I decide which direction I want to start building in. Even when it comes to leader evaluation, how do you evaluate your leaders? Well, think about how many cards they can draw or how many actions they can generate on their front and their backside with their awakened ability. Start looking at your leaders and all your cards as just different pieces of multiple cards stapled together that form these effects. And as you'll see over the course of the game, look at, Energy Boost Beerus, from set 1. And then scale all the way to now, and it's now that effect that Beerus had is now on a 3-drop or less. Now it's on a Dimensional Banisher Fu. That's why Banisher Fu is one of the best cards in the game. It's a 1-cost answer to virtually anything. So that's how I look at it. That's how I ascertain the value of cards. Exactly. It's been my favorite card since it came out. But that's how I ascertain the value of cards. Is I just truly look at how many cards. It sounds funny. How many cards a card is giving me.
Right, and what I appreciate about that is when you say you're looking at how much cards a card earns you, you're looking at it in context, because taking it literally, Foreseeing Hit is actually a +0, right?
Yep.
You take two cards out of their hand and you put it back. But when you think about it in context of, I'm limiting my opponent's plays, if they can't play a 4-drop, then what value would they have gotten out of that 4-drop? Right? Because if their 4-drop kills 2 guys, those are 2 guys that are not going to stay on the board for the duration of the turn, and both of those guys are creating value. And if they're 20k power and the opponent's you're able to threaten lethal, that 20k power directly translates the card advantage too, because they have to discard additional cards to combo out.
I was going to say,
look at them in context.
Yeah,
What were you saying, Pat?
I was saying it works both ways. Like when set 3 was first shown, like I don't know if you guys remember, like I went nuts. I was like, Foo is ridiculous, because in a vacuum, when you play Foo, I know it costs 6. Not only do you get a body that's sizable for 6 costs, if my opponent has like 12 cards in hand, this card could just potentially just be a plus 12, because it just could potentially just blank 12 cards. That's how I knew. I was like, oh, so not only does it like potentially just discard my opponent's hand for the turn, none of their cards work even on their turn. So like potentially you just auto win when you jam. That actually is my favorite card. Like,
It's so beautiful.
When you play it, you win because of just how much raw advantage the card generates. And as time has progressed, like the card has seen play in a lot of top 8 lists. So I was like, hey, like we got one. We predicted one correctly.
I think another skill that is actually more exclusive to DBS, though I suppose over time this becomes valuable in other games, is attention to detail in reading the card. Like I know RTFC is the meme, but like when I looked at the results from Dallas, the most innovative thing for me, it wasn't Anthony Hernandez playing Super Dragon Ball and Super Dragon Ball Leader. It wasn't Sheila getting 3rd place. It was the one guy playing Yellow Kid Goku that sided 2 copies of Death Ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at it and I'm like, well, maybe I forgot how the card works. Maybe there's a Frieza in his deck and he can pump the Frieza. No, that wasn't it. Let's pull up Death Ball. Let's look at the card. And they give a Frieza leader 15k, and the kill a Rested Battle card were entirely exclusive of each other. And I went through the entire duration so that card got printed, not knowing that. It was, and that was a mind blow for me, realizing that, oh, I wish Father Son Kamehameha was yellow. There's been a yellow Father Son Kamehameha this entire time. But because you didn't pay attention, or because I didn't pay attention to detail, I oversaw that, and that's something that I could have improved multiple decks if I had that knowledge of.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things is when you start looking at lists and it's like when everyone was talking about Super Shenron being a problem. I remember posting a Broly Height of Mastery list in our chat, and I was running 4 Godly Obstruction Whis and 3 Dark Power Black Mass Saiyan on my list. Like, main deck, 100%. And then it's like, that just became like the thing. Those cards just picked up obscene value because people realized, wow, like I have to actually start playing the answers for this deck. Like, yeah. And it's like being able to always know the context of where a card stands based on the way a format shifts. Like, that is the mark of someone who's like truly understands the game. Like,
yes,
when you can figure out those shifts ahead of time and you start thinking about it, and how can I start getting these cards in my deck, and how can this card that had value a set ago and is now worth nothing inside of event packs, how is this card now a tier 1? Like, it's a tier 1 card you play. Like,
competitive, like the format in this game, especially, it works for other games. So it's kind of like a dance. If deck A is what wins, most people will just automatically go to deck A for the next event. So you should just be on deck B, which beats deck A. Like, you want to play what you think is the best thing.
Stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, if Super Shenron keeps being a very good and very dominant deck, like a deck like Chilai, I'm not necessarily saying it is the hard counter, but like that's just as for argument's sake, it has tools that are very good against that deck, and it can beat that deck. Janimba, as even though Tien kind of wrecks it right now, is a deck that has always been very good traditionally against yellow aggro decks like Storm, which is one of the reasons why I chose it for Nationals.
Hercule?
Hercule's another one. Like, if the format is going to over-centralize on one thing, you should just, as a player, be aware, oh, I can just play this. Like, obviously, in the first 2 to 3 rounds of any given format, we always talk about what we refer to as the jungle, which is you could run into anything, like, in the first couple rounds. It's, like, completely random. You risk getting blown out there, but, like, if you make it out of the jungle, with something like Hercule, and the rest of the top tables are all Super Shenron, great, free wins.
Congratulations.
Yes.
So you can see their big brain plays, and you can see why so many people get better just by talking to them. You can see why they've been able to top premier events and not just bubble out on them. It's probably because my ineffective way of ascertaining card value. First off is the foiling. Do you see the difference between these two Yamchas? One of them is beautiful and one of them's not. So we just like ditch that one automatically.
No. Here's the thing though. If you're playing 4 copies of a card, you should be playing 4 different rarities. That way, if you need to cut one, you know which one is underperforming.
Oh, I was not on board until I was on board. See, the more wisdom I'm learning here. You know, the second thing after the foiling that I actually start looking at is the character name. You see this specimen? This is super foily, and it's a Gohan, and its effect was nuts when it came out. This is an A+ card to me.
It was a $50 card.
It was wonderful.
It's a $75 card.
It got high.
Yo, you want to hear something?
Go for it.
The first Judge promo, Joyful Strike Goku Black, I sold for $180.
That's that card, man.
Sometimes we
that's
profit.
one of your cards ever, dude.
$80.
Yeah, no. You know what the real big brain play is, dude? I used to get the guys that would win Worlds for Naruto. They got to make a card. So what I would do is I would go, Joe. Here's Joe's card. Here's Jerry's card. I would get them in the lowest possible rarity you could get, which is non-foil starter deck exclusive without the gold stamp on the name. Then I would get Jerry to sign all of Joe's cards and Joe to sign all of Jerry's cards, and then just main deck them. That's the real brain play, dude. That's Galaxy Brain.
Yeah. Sorry, Chris, we distracted you from your point.
Oh, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, every now and then the process is a little flawed. Like when you have really cool Gohans that don't do anything, and then you just have like mediocre situational Gohans that destroyed set 2 Soul Striker decks.
That card was nuts. That card was nuts.
Oh, God.
Literally, I saw that that ARG Invitational Qualifier mat, the cloth mat with the Beerus and the Goku and Super Saiyan Blue, and I was like, I need that event. So I strapped up Soul Striker. It was like shortly after Richmond because I was like, wow, Matt devastated me with Soul Striker. I might need to switch to Soul Striker. And then I kept playing against Mally Jamal from Shinron's Lair, and he taught me a couple things. So I actually teched 2 of these into my Soul Striker deck and sided the third one. And once I got to the point of the tournament where it was 5 Soul Striker mirrors in a row, it just became I won the game the same way every single time. It was just like evolve this dude or hardcast him, swing on my leader, play Mass Sand over Realm, and then they had to have Weeses. If they had more than 2 or 3 Weeses in grave, they just died that turn, like every single time.
Yeah, he was Fu before Fu was a thing.
So nasty. And he was Gohan, which automatically made him...
That's how Matt and I became friends, actually. We did like the Arnold Schwarzenegger and what's his name, like handshake.
The Carl, like what they just,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like the manliest handshake ever. Like when I met him in Hartford, dude, he was like, "You play piercing?" I was like, "Yup," and he's like, "I play piercing," and I was like, "Sweet," and then just manly handshake, and we became best friends after.
Yeah, but you didn't want it as bad as I do, dude. I played the best game 1 deck in the format.
Oh yeah.
It was joyful into determined Goku into piercing all the same turn. I was just like,
he made Zamafu before.
All right.
There you go. He made the set. Yeah,
that sounds completely nasty.
Yeah, no.
I mean, it was, but once your opponent knew what you
to be fair, like that Gohan's still good and limited, but who plays that? It'd be something, right?
Look, first off, he's always good in my heart, and so these all have 4 copies of each in my binder. But the point I need to get into is that my decision tree is doo-doo. And the next point that I'm getting onto past that is actually I still have a couple more questions to ask. I know we've been talking off camera a little bit, but I would like to know just kind of short, concise points on where you think the game may need to go for it to continue riding out its potential, to hopefully overtake the solitaire foil fest that is Pokemon, break into the top 3, and be the game we want it to be.
So, the 2 things that I want to see to try and keep this very short and brief. 1, I'd like to see more interactivity. I don't necessarily we don't need like a ton of cards like Cold Bloodlust or Batarang. We do just need cards that allow us to either stop our opponents from doing things, or like, you know, hinder them in some way. Like we have like Whis and Borgos, and that's a step in the right direction. But we need more of those to answer a variety, like a wider variety of problems. So that's one thing. And then two, and I've talked about this before for any of you guys who watched my Why Senzu Bean Carries the Game on Its Back video in set 5. If not, you can go, you know, YouTube it or something. In every good game, usually defense should be cheaper and easier to accomplish than offense because of the risk-reward ratio. When offense is cheaper and more effective for the same cost than defense, then why use defensive options? Because at that point, defense is always basically playing to not lose, and offense is always usually playing to win. So you just take the offensive option because it wins the game faster. We are currently in a format where almost every offensive card in Super Shenron either costs 0 or 1, and most of the answers in the format that answer it are 1 costs that can be negated, which means that inherently they are weaker options than just playing a bunch of 0 and 1 cost beaters that you can just slam at your opponent. So I'd like to see that addressed at some point. I don't care if that's like, let's print 1 cost negates that are, you know, unnegatable, or, you know, ways around battering, or like a 0 cost black card that's like a counter attack timing that just says, hey, you can play a negate from your hand at the same timing window as this card. It can't be negated this turn. So yeah, there has to be something that's addressed to kind of like shift the, you know, balance a little bit in defense's favor without making the games too long, because I know that's something that Zap and you know, Jordan Markle and other people worry about, is that games might go too long if you make defense too good. I'm not asking for it to be the best. I'm just asking for you to kind of tweak the, you know, the ratio, because right now game is so compressed. There needs to be some kind of pushback to uncompress it, even just a little bit.
No, that's good. I'm going to give Matt this because I know our views on the current format are very, very similar, and I don't want to accidentally steal your thunder again.
That's okay.
That's cute, adorable.
Yeah, me and Zap actually had this conversation recently, and it was a point we made in the video. But Pat brought up a thing about having more interactions, and everyone keeps throwing around that phrase. I want more interactive cards. Well, the thing is you really don't want more interactive cards. What you want is you want the ability to disrupt your opponent more. Like, you want the ability to stop your opponent from doing something.
I want Narset's reversal. That's what
you want to reduce the consistency your opponent has. And the problem with the game right now is the decks that are really good at doing the degenerate thing are too consistent. Mm-hmm. And so we need more disruptive materials. Like my favorite strategy, if I do look at another card game as a parallel, and it's not to like steal ideas from that game, but my favorite deck from watching old school Magic is Death and Taxes, because all that deck is just a bunch of generically good hate bears. Yeah, it's just generically good hate bears that stops the opponent and disrupts them to the point where they can't do anything because the game is
Yes, for those of you guys who do not know what a hate bear is a 2-mana 2/2.
Yeah.
So it's basically just
value city.
It is a cheap, okay statted card, and hate is because it literally hates an aspect of your opponent's game. It just says, like, you can't do X, you can't do Y, you can't do Z. That's the hate part. So
yeah, like, I mean, just imagine like a 2-cost battle card. Like, just a 2-cost battle card, and it says, auto, when you play this card, look at your opponent's hand, choose 1 battle card that's energy cost 3 or less, and send it to your opponent's war. Like, just stuff like that.
Borgos, Whis, those are the closest thing I think we have to hate bears. They're cheap, they come out, they're weenies, but they stop your opponent from doing something essential.
Or like your opponent's cards with desire get 2 extra costs, and it's a barrier 1-drop.
Yeah, or make a card like a similar to a TN, where it's like 4 costs. If you're playing against a Shenron leader, it costs 1, and then it's not barrier, but it has activate main, pitch a card, and your opponent can't play desires on their next turn. Like, that way your opponent is forced into playing removal in their deck, and if they're not playing removal in their deck, they get punished. So it's like, now you're punishing multiple things, but the card is generically good, it fits in the spot. Like, the game just needs more cards that allow you to disrupt the consistency of your opponent's deck. And this game also needs to get to a point where playing games 2 and 3 isn't a death sentence. Like, I want to see more people be able to lose game 1 be rewarded for good sideboarding in games 2 and 3, and then come back and win the set. Because right now, that doesn't really happen. Like, if you win game 1, I win game 2, you're probably going to win game 3 because you're on the... Like, and it's because the options that we have to disrupt our opponent's consistency don't exist. So, I think that from a design standpoint, what I'd like to see is, I don't want to see more cards that are, like, better at defending. Because that is not what this game is about. Like, this game is not about defending. This game is about fighting. It's about fighting tactically. And I want to make sure that our players, like, have the tools to do that as we move forward. To be able to make these tactical decisions from deck construction and sideboard construction and gameplay. Like, and those are the cards we need to think about presenting to the masses, not just more, more negates. Because Lord knows, like, we need to stop having stuff like that. And because I want the game to be over 5 turns. Like, I want 5 turns.
I'll agree to disagree. I'll take 5 turns. A 5-turn format is A-okay with me.
5 turns is perfect.
5-turn average, meaning a fast deck is winning on 3 or 4, and a slow deck is winning on 6 or 7.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like
gold.
Yeah, because like combo decks, right? So like, there should be combo decks in this game, but you know what? There should also be cards that allow you to disrupt the combo, which right now we don't have that. Like, we just don't have it. So it's like, those games, like game 1, I should get blown out by the combo deck. But games 2 and 3, I should be able to make those games.
Yeah.
Which right now I can't do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is why Matt and I think that AOD is a very appropriate deck for the game.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, I think if you like made Childish once per turn, I know people say that AOD becomes like the best deck. No, it doesn't. I don't think it becomes the best deck because, like, you can survive the turn that they go off. Like, you can survive the turn they go off. And you then can play an out to it, like whether if you have like a widespread sweeper like Penitent Martyr, or whether you have a Chain Zeno or something like that. Like, but again, we just need more disruption. Like, we need it, and not having it is what makes. That's what everyone goes. We need more interactivity. Like, no, you don't. Like,
are you just like trying to just like attack me?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not attacking. No, because I've used the same exact sentence, and it wasn't. And it wasn't till I just like really, I said, I had a conversation with Zap, and like we both were like, "Wow, that's exactly what we've been trying to say this entire."
So what you're saying is we don't need Forza Will, we need Thalia.
Yes, we do. We do. Make your opponent's stuff cost more. I would love that. Can you imagine? Like, make your opponent's extra cards cost 1 more. Make Child's Wish costs 3 or whatever.
Well, actually, at this point, we couldn't have a Thalia if it was an extra card in this game. Because that would just literally, especially if it was in yellow, that would just, or blue, it would just it would just push everything over the top.
Could you imagine Sensu Bean having to an additional?
Oh yeah, no, it'd just be
that kind of scares me a little bit because coming from a Yu-Gi-Oh background, when you have too many inhibiting effects, you just start having floodgate decks. Everybody has about 9 to 12 of the same sideboard because you have Gozen Match, which prevents your opponent from playing multiple attributes. You have Rivalry of the Warlords, which prevents them from playing multiple typings. You have Imperial Iron Walls if there's a lot of warping in a deck. And then you have the decks that will just have solid beaters and then just 3 or 4 floodgates, and your opponent is just sitting there and not being able to play while you poke on them slowly. And so like that kind of scares me a little bit. But thinking about what you guys said, I kind of feel like this game doesn't have enough danger on the defense. Like, you definitely can look at somebody's board when they're swinging at you and be like, wow, I might die. Yeah. But like in Yu-Gi-Oh, you could put a huge, and I know we shouldn't be comparing games, it's just, I know the feeling of going into a combo and putting a nice value card on the field, but then looking at that face down card and being like, is that a dimensional prison? Am I going to get warped the moment I swing?
Exactly.
And we just kind of have don't attack me. We don't have any like hand smacks on the defense that many times, except Mafuba and crap cards like that don't do anything.
I like the idea of cards that like, so like, I feel like those cards that are on defense, 'cause the problem is you start making defensive cards like too efficient, defense just becomes better, which like me ideally like think of now, like again, I'm just going down Theory Crafter's way here. 0 cost extra card, and it's activate battle, send 1 card in your hand to your drop area. For the duration of the battle, your leader gains revenge. Like, just something like that. That like it punishes the opponent, but it's at a cost to me, right? Mm-hmm. Like I have to pay for it, but I'm getting this 0 cost effect, and then I'm getting to gain X amount of value because I just killed the threat that you just played. Like, But again, like that is a defensive option, but it's that thing you're talking about, that feel you're talking about. I don't know if I can swing here. Like, what if they have this? Like, is that all you've got in Afterimage? Kind of give you that feel. Yeah, they give you that feel, which I like. Yeah,
no, that's exactly that's one of those things where I was talking about when I said like offense and defense need to be more balanced, because right now, defense. The only thing I can say good about the defensive cards in this game is that they cost 1.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like,
1 life.
Not even that. It's just they cost 1. There's almost nothing like universally like super scary. Like even Nimbus, which is hailed as one of the great defensive options in this game, when you really think about it, is a gigantic minus for the person that plays it.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to the guy on the other side of the table? Nothing.
So
go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, so none of my views really differ from these, and I think I'll interject a little bit to a couple more examples to help clarify kind of what Pat and Matt are saying. But first, I want to break Matt's heart. The last version of the rulebook says that Revenge only activates if the battle card has Revenge at the beginning of the battle. So King Vegeta Surprise Attack, as we're currently playing it, is no longer works. It won't KO on the.
They're going to change it just like they did with the minus rule.
That's awful.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's actually a thread on Facebook about that today. But anyway, so part of the so there's 2 issues with this issue of I want more interactivity and I want more disruption. One is that interactivity can actually become oppressive. Kind of what you're saying about these floodgate ideas. If I establish a board and I just have a handful of counters, the game's actually not more interactive, less interactive.
Yep, correct.
Because I'm playing the game, and I say every time you try to play the game, you don't.
Yes.
So what disruption does in some of these passive effects, they say you can still play the game, you just can't play this way.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, and it creates an opportunity where you can build a deck that's very narrow-minded, that does one thing super duper well, and it has the hard counter, but you're rewarded in that game one. What Matt's saying. And the other issue is the more interactivity you create, the longer games go. Because right now we're at a point, kind of how Matt's saying, part of the issue that we can't have 3 good games is because it's hard to finish 3 full games. And if every time I play a card, I remember I read a thread last week where it was, well, what if we create a activate skill timing? Now, every time I activate a skill, I have to ask, do you have a response? And if that takes 5 seconds, and that happens, 80 times over the course of a match, that's 400 seconds. That's like 6 or 7 extra minutes to a game. It adds up to become a very big deal. What disruption does is it doesn't increase those windows or increase the amount of interaction, but still allows you to disrupt their strategy.
Imagine if you had to ask if they had lust every time you played something.
Exactly.
No matter what color.
The other thing is, people always are asking for this game to be a digital platform at some point. Bandai, if you add those effects to the game, it's a coding nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's gonna just be like a prompt literally every time.
Exactly. And the other thing I wanted to chime in with is when you're trying to, this balance of offense and defense, something I've noticed is most of the good offensive cards in this game are good because they have the option of assisting in defense as well, while most of the defensive cards don't really help offensively because you have the spectrum, right? On one end you have cards like Flying Nimbus and you said Imperial Iron Wall and Yu-Gi-Oh, which are they're straight defense. In no way, shape, or form do they help you win the game. But if you think about some of the more offensive cards in the game, I'm thinking about things of like Preface of Recovery. Son Goku is a really good example. It establishes a board. It has barrier, so it allows you to go into an EX play, but it also untaps 2 energy. And those 2 energy can be offensive or they can be defensive. So that card is very good at doing both. I think Afterimage is a really good example of that on the opposite side of the spectrum. It punishes you for attacking and says, the more you attack me, the more Afterimages I have, the more your board is going to get punished for it. And what we need to see is more of those extremes and less of things like Flying Nimbus and Dimension Magic, which almost entirely contribute defensively. So finding ways to, on the defensive spectrum, not to be so much 0 out of 10 where 0 is incredibly defensive, and find things that come more into the 3, 4, 5 range. Pat brought up a point that at the end of the day, the game is designed that the person on offense has the advantage. So theoretically, maybe the answer is you build the game so defense is right at that 5 or 6 mark, and then if the defense is designed as a 6 and the aggression generically wins, maybe that's the balance for offense and defense. But then that might not end up being the 5-turn game that I think most people feel we should be shooting towards.
Yeah, like we need more, like, I guess, like just more cards that just generate tempo. Like it's just whether if it's offensive or defensive. Like Afterimage is a great example. Preface is a really good example because, like Zap mentioned, the card does a few things. Like it provides offensive tempo and defensive tempo. Which in this game, like that's what makes this game so unique and so special, is that you have to construct your deck in a way to where you can generate both. You have to be able to generate offensive and defensive tempo. You have to be able to make sure you're managing your resources to where, like, you're spending as much energy as you can offensively, but you also have to make sure that you have enough resources left over to then generate that tempo defensively to make sure you can maintain card advantage, resource advantage of your opponent before you go back into your turn. And so it's like we need more cards that help generate that sort of tempo for strategies that want to lean more defensive or more mid-range, because we haven't had a true mid-range deck in a long time.
I miss Kefla mid-range.
I mean,
Thank you, Ramp is still a deck.
I know it's still a deck for sure.
It's still a deck and it's still fun, but it is a little bit frustrating because, like, even when you take it to locals, everyone's like, "Man, you just destroyed me game 1." Well, TN. So
Is what it is. Now I do have, because this kind of sounds like a bit of a breaking point. Well, first I guess I'll ask if you guys have any other points you wanted to get out there, because I already think I found the splitting point to turn this video into 2 videos, because we're over at like 40 minutes right now, and that's awesome because there's a gajillion things to say. But did you guys have any more points you think you'd want to put on here? Or actually, I shouldn't say that because I know you guys have more points. Do you guys have any points you guys think should fit into the video before we
totally
start
up to you. I mean, honestly, if the only other thing you want to talk about is the Patreon, we can do that in 5 minutes or less.
I would actually like to propose that at some point, if more topics can be made, especially since you guys have kind of withdrawn from YouTube a little bit, if more topics can be made later, I'd love to do this again. Like, this has been the most entertaining.
Oh yeah,
I like listening to you guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny you say that because
what? What is it?
Because Matt's pretty excited. I think he wants to start diving back into videos in the very near future.
Deep dive.
Yeah. I will be getting back to the content grind. I know I've been away for a while. I've been training. I've been for the comeback.
He's been stage training.
I have. I'm going to Origins Game Fair in June. I'm hoping to make an impact, of course, on that event. But up until then, I want to kind of document all of the theory that I'll be going over and thinking about and talking through all the new decks, new strategies, gameplay, hanging out with my friends on the Discord and stuff. Just more content to get to you guys in which I can share the enjoyment that I've been having for the game as of late with everyone else. And so I am excited to get back to that. But yeah, Chris, I would love to make another one of these videos, of course.
Another one of these? Yeah, that'd be cool. Maybe if anybody wanted to, when I normally, the videos I do the most on this channel that get the most views are the spoiler videos. And I think it'd also be kind of cool to go over the cards with one of you, two of you, all three of you, just talk about like when a new color is released, because then we can really get some technical assessment of the cards as well, because those are the ones I have the most fun just doing in general. And also,
yeah, I'm the same way. Like that's pretty much like all I make anymore is just talking about spoilers.
Excellent. And I can also assure you guys that while I've spent most of the words that came out of my mouth either hyping up the people on screen or talking about Gohan, when I haven't taken like a format-long break, I can be sort of knowledgeable about the cards that I'm playing, just not now. I haven't touched anything since North Carolina. Like, I got home and I was like, screw you, Broly. Like, I threw that. It was just, I haven't touched it. And then work got busy, and then this video got put off for so long. So, just a lot of things. But the last thing I would want to touch on is that if you guys liked any, if not everything that was talked about tonight, minus my BS, there is a place where you could get all of this and more all the time, as frequently as they update. And I'd like to be able to tell you guys more about this place. So
Yeah.
plug time.
Yeah. If you have not heard about it or post on Facebook, you see myself, Pat, Zap, or other members of the crew post about the 3XG Patreon. If you are looking to take whatever you want in this game to the next level, or if you want to improve yourself as a player, a deck builder, if you want to just have fun with the game, or you want to find a community of people that is like-minded and shares the goals that you have, and you have a place where you can have a positive, healthy dialogue throughout the course of the day when it comes to this game, then 3XG Patreon is the place for you. It has everything that you're looking for when it comes to weekly content that's barely, if not always, the most consistent content out there when it comes to in-depth strategy articles, deck profiles, everything like that, what you need on the format. And then, of course, like I said, the discussion pieces. If you're looking to get a deck doctor done from one of these beautiful gentlemen up here above me on screen, or if you're looking to actually take part in one of our monthly training camps, which are insane. You get to spend 2 hours with these amazing minds in the game. They'll walk through all of your plays that you're making, walk through the decks you're looking to play, going to an event, and you can walk out of this thing getting more value than you ever thought you possibly could. I don't mean to hype up the Patreon, but honestly, the thing I love the most about it is the fact that it's a place where people can come to all share their love and their goals and just get better. The amount of Nats invites handed out last year to members of the Patreons, 3XG had the best team last year.
Yes.
3XG had the best team.
Yeah,
it wasn't PPG, it wasn't KTM, it was none of these scrubs out here, except for the scrub fan. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, definitely consider it. Like you said, the 3XG had so many invites handed out last year, for sure. And then, like, you think about players like Jose Mercado started as a member of the Scrub fam. Man's literally winning ARGs now. Or coming very close.
And contributes to being a part of the Discord. Corbin, he went to an event, he didn't do great. He's like, I want to get better at this game. He joined 3XG Productions.
Yep.
Won his next regional.
We don't talk about Corbin and that regional. That is forbidden jitsu.
And then even more recently, Brian with Broly. His goal at North Carolina was, guys, I want to top my first event, top 8s with Broly. And it is all because of, the support that he got from the 3XG Discord.
And his work ethic.
Yeah, and his work ethic, and then just literally spitballing, us all the time. Like, if you are a member of the Patreon, everybody knows, if you just PM me, I'll answer anything. Like, any question you guys have. So, it is like, same goes for Zap. Zap is super active all the time in there. Like, Zap, like, literally, when I do get time to look at it, I'm like, man, Zap is just a machine, dude. He's just all the time trying to help people, seeing what people are doing, brewing up new discussions, and it's like, it's crazy because, it's when I was there at the beginning, when we started the Discord, I was just like, I don't know, man, like, maybe people really won't, join and they won't have, like, these crazy discussions, and then I look at it now, I'm like,
people are posting deck lists that other people are taking, 40, 45 cards from, and they're topping events with it. Yeah. Like it's a group of individuals that are succeeding.
I thought I had this really sick, innovative deck, and I was like, yes, this is it. This might be my masterpiece for this far. And then I look at the Discord, and somebody's like 47 cards the same as me. I'm like, no, they become self-aware. So yeah, like that's what happens, man. Like, people just vibe really well there, and then they just jam. They got the stuff. It's a beautiful place with beautiful people.
One of my best friends is an avid member of their Patreon channel, and every time I look over his shoulder and I look at it, and I know it's like bumming Netflix, but I'll just kind of start reading, and then all of a sudden I feel smarter. In fact, just to catch up with the format when I do decide to start getting back into going to locals again, or when I start playing my next event, I'm probably going to be looking through the Patreon to catch up, because when that many minds come together, both the content creators as well as the people that take those ideas, mold them over, and add their own spice, you get just a wealth of knowledge.
It's worth it, even if you don't care, about all this other stuff. Like, you don't care about the Discord, right? You don't care about the deck profiles, and it is worth it simply because before any major event, there's usually a recap with like literally these are the like 10 most meta-defining things, and it is your cheat sheet to literally be like the night before. I need to be prepared for all this crap because this is most likely what I'm going to see. That is worth a mountain of gold. I can't think of another game where it's just like, man, somebody literally lays out every like broken strategy for me and shows me how to counter it.
You know how many times I've got yelled at for people for posting the deck that they were so set to win with?
Oh yeah,
and they spoiled it.
Yeah, like Travis and some of the guys from the Bronx where the Hill Twins play, they were just like, why would you let the Chili sauce out? Like, it happens. Like,
because somebody was going to let it out at some point. Like, I mean, it's just... I don't know, people seem to think that they're the only people that come up with ideas, and with how many people play games, 9 times out of 10, you're not the first person. You just may be the first person to talk with it. You may be the most skilled person to play with it. There's so many variables.
999 times out of 1,000, you're not the first person.
I'm always the first. Always.
Every single time.
Let's leave off on that, because that's the most important takeaway.
Yes, thank you.
But they're Patreon link.
Yeah, that's just good. Yeah, that's just good, life advice. You're not the first to do something. You're not the best at something. There's always somebody who is first. There's always someone who is better. If you can accept that and still love yourself, you will be A-okay in life.
And better than that, accept that it doesn't.
That was a good moral. That was a very good moral.
Unless you're me, then none of that applies if you're me.
Yeah, no. I learned that really early on from this game called Super Smash Bros. Melee.
So, I hope you guys enjoyed everything we had to offer today. This is hopefully as much fun for you as it was for me. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm glad I was trying to schmooze and talk to them about this over in North Carolina. Their Patreon link is going to be down there along with the link to part 1. And I'm not going to try to trash talk, but Corbin, I'm salty about that. I'm just a little salty.
So you had to.
So
what happens at Otakon stays at Otakon, all right?
Okay. Fair enough. Chris, thank you for the opportunity to have us chat to give us the impression that we're pseudo intellectuals in this silly card game, and
distinguished gentlemen with
able to help you out.
eyes and whatnot.
Not pseudo intellectuals, very intellectuals, and I think Pat was actually correct on that. That was silly of me. I'm going to use the SpongeBob dolphin noise to just blurt out the entire thing I just said, and then we'll keep going. So everybody will want to know what I said, but you won't know what I said because the dolphin noises. And I think I'll close it out. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I'm also going to have a link to Matt's channel. Do you guys have channels too? Are there channels I should look through?
Yeah, you can include them. We'll hook you up.
Okay, so
everybody's going to go to Matt, but yeah.
Fair enough.
We'll just call you the Surge Protector because you got all the plugs.
I like that. SP. So, you guys have a great night. Thanks for tuning in.
Okay. Bye!